The worst part wasn't being ignored. It was realizing, halfway through the date, that I didn't matter at all. He checked his phone while I was talking. Not once, not twice, over and over again, like whatever was happening on that screen was more real than the woman sitting right in front of him. I remember watching his eyes drift past me, like I was just background noise in a loud, unimportant room. We were sitting in a bright café in downtown Chicago. Sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows, lighting up the wooden tables, the coffee cups, the people laughing around us. Everyone else looked happy, and I sat there, forcing a smile, pretending I wasn't slowly falling apart. Because I had really tried this time. I had spent an hour picking out the right outfit. I had rehearsed conversations in my head. I had told myself maybe this time would be different. It wasn't. And just when I thought this day couldn't get any worse, a complete stranger changed everything. But before I tell you what happened next, if you believe in second chances, unexpected love, and the idea that kindness can still exist in this world, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Home with Dad. Stories like this only reach people because of you. His name was Brandon. At least I think it was. He barely said it. By the time he remembered he had somewhere else to be, I had already checked out emotionally. I nodded politely, told him it was okay, even thanked him for meeting me. Thanked him. That's the kind of person I had become, grateful for the bare minimum. He stood up, gave a quick, distracted smile, and walked out like this date had never existed. And just like that, I was alone. I sat there staring at the empty chair across from me. My coffee had gone cold. The sunlight had shifted slightly, stretching shadows across the table, and something inside me felt small, not just because of him, but because of everything. The failed dates, the almost relationships, the late-night thoughts wondering what was wrong with me, why I was always almost enough, but never quite chosen. I had built a life for myself in Chicago, a decent job, a small apartment, a routine that looked stable from the outside, but inside, I was tired of showing up for people who didn't show up for me. Tired of hoping, tired of pretending. Rejection didn't hurt. I grabbed my bag, ready to leave, ready to disappear into my usual quiet loneliness, when I heard a small voice behind me. "Dad, is she okay?" I froze. It was soft, innocent, honest. I turned slightly and saw a little girl sitting at the table behind me. She couldn't have been older than 6. Blonde curls, a pink jacket, little sneakers swinging under her chair. Next to her sat a man, early 30s maybe. He looked different, not polished like my date, not distracted, not trying too hard. He looked real. There were faint dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept enough. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his posture relaxed but attentive. The kind of man who looked like he had responsibilities that actually mattered. He followed his daughter's gaze and looked at me. Our eyes met, and for a moment, something shifted. There was no judgment in his expression, no pity, just understanding. He leaned down, whispering something to his daughter, but she shook her head stubbornly, still watching me. Then, before I could look away, he stood up. My heart jumped a little. I didn't want attention. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want someone walking over to ask if I was okay when I clearly wasn't. But the way he approached me, it wasn't intrusive. It was careful, respectful, like he knew he was stepping into a moment that mattered. He stopped a few feet from my table and gave a small, slightly awkward smile. "Hey, I'm really sorry if this feels random," he said, his voice calm and warm. "But my daughter noticed you seemed a little upset, and she won't let me leave without at least saying something." I blinked, caught off guard. I wasn't used to this. Strangers didn't usually notice me, or maybe they just didn't care. I gave a small nod, unsure what to say. He glanced back at his daughter, who was watching us like this was the most important moment of her day. "She thinks maybe you need a friend right now," he added with a soft smile. Something about that broke through the heaviness inside me. Before I could respond, The little girl waved enthusiastically, and without thinking, I smiled back, a real smile. The man seemed to notice, and then, after a brief hesitation, like he was debating whether he should say it, he took a small breath. "Okay, this might sound a little crazy," he said, almost laughing at himself. "But would you be willing to pretend to be my girlfriend for a few minutes?" I stared at him, completely caught off guard. He quickly raised his hands, shaking his head slightly. I know. That sounded weird," he said. "It's just, my daughter has been asking me why I don't have someone in my life, and I didn't really know how to explain it today. Then she saw you and she decided you looked nice enough to fix that problem. I couldn't help it." I laughed. For the first time that day, I actually laughed. I looked at the little girl again. She was watching with hopeful eyes, like she had already decided the outcome, and something inside me shifted. Just minutes ago, I had felt invisible. Now, someone saw me. Not for what I lacked, but for what I could be. I took a small breath. "Okay," I said. His eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Okay?" he repeated. I nodded. "Yeah, okay." The relief on his face was immediate, real, unfiltered. "Thank you," he said quietly. We walked back to their table together. "This is Lily," he said gently. "And I'm Ethan." Lily leaned forward, studying me like I was part of a story she had been waiting for. "Are you really my dad's girlfriend?" she asked. I smiled softly. "For a little while," I said. That seemed to be enough. She grinned and went back to her juice box like everything had just fallen perfectly into place. At first, it was simple, light conversation, small smiles, just enough to keep Lily happy. But then, something unexpected happened. It started to feel real. Ethan wasn't trying to impress me. He wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't pretending to be someone else. He was just there, present. He told me about his life in pieces. He worked as a contractor. His wife had passed away 3 years ago. Since then, it had just been him and Lily, figuring things out one day at a time. There was no self-pity in his voice, just honesty and strength, the kind of strength that doesn't need to prove anything, and without realizing it, I started opening up too. Not everything, but enough to feel seen. Time passed without me noticing. The sunlight softened, turning golden. The café grew quieter, and somewhere in that ordinary afternoon, something inside me started to heal. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to earn someone's attention. I didn't feel like I had to be enough. I just was, and somehow, that was enough. Eventually, we stepped outside. Lily insisted we walk to the park down the street. She grabbed both our hands like it was the most natural thing in the world. People passed by, probably seeing nothing more than a small family enjoying a warm afternoon. But for me, it felt unreal. Just hours ago, I had been sitting alone, questioning everything about myself. And now, I was part of something that felt whole. At the park, Lily ran toward the swings, her laughter light and free. Ethan and I stood side by side, watching her. There was a quiet moment between us. Comfortable, real. "Thank you," he said softly. I shook my head. "You don't have to thank me." "I do," he said. "You didn't just help me. You made her day." I looked at Lily. Made mine too," I admitted. He smiled, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between us. Before we left, there was that pause. That moment where you don't know if this is goodbye or the beginning of something else. "I know today was unusual," he said. "But would you want to meet again? Not pretend this time." My heart skipped, but not out of fear, out of hope. "I'd like that," I said. And just like that, a terrible date turned into something I never expected. Something real. Something honest. Something worth believing. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. There were doubts. Moments where I questioned if I was ready to step into a life that already had history, responsibility, love that didn't start with me. But there was also something else, something stronger. There was laughter, late-night conversations, weekend mornings at the park, Lily slowly trusting me, letting me into her world one small step at a time, and Ethan. He never rushed anything. He never made me feel like I had to compete with the past. He just showed up, consistently, gently, real, and that's when I realized something. Love isn't always dramatic. It doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the middle of an ordinary day, when you're at your lowest, when you've almost given up, and it simply says, I see you. So if this story touched your heart, if you've ever felt invisible, or believed that maybe love just wasn't meant for you, take a moment to like, share, and comment. And before we end, I have one special request. Comment one word that describes how this story made you feel, because sometimes one word is enough to say everything. I went on a terrible date that day. I felt small, unseen, unwanted. But I walked away with something I didn't even know I needed. Second chance. Not just at love, but at believing I was worth it. And all it took was a little girl who noticed, and a single dad who asked the most unexpected question. Can you be my girlfriend? Sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything.